Hello, everyone. Welcome to Leadership Talks. I'm your host, Kiran. I'm a leadership communication coach with Leadership Card. Every week on Leadership Talks, we invite a guest to share their journey. Today, on the 9th episode of Leadership Talks, we have with us Shen-Tel. Shen-Tel is joining us all the way from Sydney, Australia. She's an entrepreneur, she's a mother of two, and the founder of Kuching Food Aid, along with being a dear friend. Without any further ado, let me first invite Shen-Tel on the screen.
Hi! Yay!
Yay. Hi, Shen-Tel. Thank you so much for joining us on Leadership Talks.
Thank you for having me. I can't wait to get chatting about all things.
Oh, I'm super excited, Shen-Tel. Shen-Tel, we have a very global audience joining us for Leadership Talks. So why don't we start off by you sharing a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you for that glowing introduction, by the way. I was like, who is that person?
Very much you.
I guess I could say I was, just born a very creative soul from the get-go from a young child. And I always knew that I was going to go into the arts or something like that. And I ended up becoming a graphic designer when I finished university. And I got married and I started my own graphic design business for a couple of years. But I moved to Kuching, which is how we met. I moved to Kuching and I actually founded two businesses by accident. Called Datin Shen-Tel and Bower House, which is probably what I'm most known for. But I'm actually, at the root of it all, I'm actually a graphic designer. So I graduated in the Master of Design in Communication. So I'm really a visual kind of person, which kind of like jumps across many areas. But I basically design for other clients. I do their branding, corporate identity kind of stuff. So I naturally had that in me. So I was able to, with my business partner, Serini, and then my sister, Elizabeth, started Datin Shen-Tel and Bower House. They're two accessory brands that are made locally in Kuching, which at the time was quite, unusual because fashion was not really something that East Malaysians were known for, even though the local handicrafts are all there. So it's rooted in the history that tribes and culturally they're so great with their hands, be it with beadwork and weaving and even baking. It was natural for us to eventually start working with local artisans, I call them, because they're just so amazing with their hands. But yeah, so I started.
When you, in fact, you have been so rooted with Kuching to the fact that even your company is Playhouse.
Borneo? It's called the Playground Borneo. Yeah, the Playground Borneo. Because there's just so much there.
You're homegrown. You've been very much supporting the local community from the very get-go. 2009 is when you started your business.
2009 was when we started the Playground Borneo with Datin Shen-Tel. I started my first business in 2004 in Sydney. And I think being born and raised in Australia rooted that homegrown pride, and that you always work with what is around you, because in some ways, Australia is an island, a massive island. So we're also dependent on what we have. We try not to import things. I think I took the same principle when I moved to Kuching, which is, again, on another island. And using what you have around you, because when you start importing things in, it's expensive, it becomes unaffordable. So, I always say, if you can, use what you can that's around you, and use local. Local's always the best.
And I'm going to take our viewers to the fact I've also read that you became an accidental hair band designer along with Serini, right? So
I don't think anyone,
but
I don't think anybody would say that. I know. I don't think anyone would wake up in the morning and say, I want to make headbands as a profession. It was definitely a hobby. We call it a hobby gone wild because it started as a hobby where it was Serini and I just making headbands. And I think everyone thought we were mad, that we're just like, yes, you're making headbands and yes, you're going to try and sell them. Good luck. But here we are. I think we're 12 years later and we have turned it into a full-fledged business. We've done collaborations with, Kate Spade, with Longcom, like these massive international brands. And I think they love as well that we're small, that we are made in Kuching, which is the unique selling point. And that our headbands have made it all the way, like you said, to Gossip Girl, Desperate Housewives, Every celebrity in Malaysia has worn our headband in a magazine or at a concert, and it became kind of a symbol of supporting Malaysians by wearing our brand.
Again, back to
So
the
I think,
home ground, supporting
yeah,
your own community in the growth.
yeah,
And yes, so that has been actually your fundamental principles from where you have your journey as what we started, you launched your career when we talk about it as an accidental hair designer to what you are today, a full-fledged entrepreneur, a founder of Kuching Food Aid and everything. It's very much going back to the community and the initiatives you've taken from the get-go.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So when we talk about your journey, which obviously it's super exciting when we share with our viewers that from Gossip Girl to Desperate Housewives to major celebrities around the world have worn this. How did that, I mean, how did it actually start? Where did you get the recognition?
I think it was when we did our first collaboration with Longcom, and we were probably only about a year old. That was really when people started taking notice. They were like, Longcom had never done a collaboration like they had done with us, where they actually had produced a gift set, and we became the faces of Longcom as well, which Sereni and I back in the day were just like, I can't believe our mugs were up, at the Longcom counter. And I think a lot of people were shocked. They were like, who are these two girls? They're selling headbands. They're made from a place called Kuching. Where is that?
Born,
I think that's
remember
when
that
born.
born known for the jungles actually and the
Yeah,
headhunters. Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's when they took notice that we had something unique and there was a love of color, which was complementary to the brand. I think we were also just really hungry and eager. And just ready to go down any path at that stage. We didn't know where we were going as a brand.
Mhm.
We just
Mhm.
knew that we wanted to have fun. We knew that we wanted it to be made in Kuching. And at the time, we only had one staff member. Like, that was it. Sereni and I and one person. And it was knowing at that point when Longcom were interested in us, we thought we probably do have something magical, that because they could have picked anyone around the world. How did they end up with us? That's when we thought, okay, maybe we should start investing in this brand a little bit more. I think you have these moments where you're faced, okay, we could have just said no to Longcom and said, sorry, we can't make it. But there's that saying, you fake it till you make it. So we kind of were like, sure, we can do it. We can do anything,
I think that is the attitude that we need to bring to the table, that we can, fake it till we make it. And that actually brings me to this question, Chantel, that when you talk about our talk show is positioned around your day job, and how you could be preparing for your dream job.
Yes.
Where is this related to? Are you talking about your entrepreneur side, or are you talking about now that you've gone so much into philanthropic work that you are doing for the community? So why don't you share with us this
There's
whole journey?
definitely, I think there's been a massive shift for me. I guess the topic today about your day job. So my day job is I'm a graphic designer.
Right.
And I work for other companies, not just the brands that I love. So I feel like my dream job has been Sereni and Chantel and Bower House, those two brands that I created myself. My day job is essentially doing the same for other brands, but they're not my brands. So it's a different kind of passion that you have when you're designing for someone else versus, yourself. When you're designing for yourself, you can do it with your eyes closed. It's not a challenge because it's just something that you naturally do. I would never have started those two businesses if I wasn't positioned in East Malaysia. That's a fact. If I was in Australia, I probably would still just be a graphic designer. I would never have thought. I think it's environmental. It's what's around you that changes things. So I went from a day job to dream job with Sereni and Chantel and with Bower House. And I didn't realize in those 12 years that I had learned a lot of business entrepreneurial skills that I had never studied in university, versus my husband who, has an MBA and he knows about all the systems and things and all the charts. And these are things that I don't know. All I know is like, you only spend money that you have and you save for a rainy day, like very basic business that I had learned from my father. And, trying to make money while you sleep. These are sort of, simple terms that I have embraced and use that in our businesses still to this day. But I learned that, and I was able to use those skills I didn't realize when I actually, in the end, accidentally again, started an NGO, which was Kuching Food Aid, helping families who are facing food insecurity due to COVID. And that, again, it was accidental. I never thought that I would do that, but it's also now become another dream job. So I guess there's different phases, and I know that there'll be more for me ahead. You know, I always know inside me that there's more. I'm never the one to settle with like, okay, I'm a graphic designer. That's it. I'm just going to stay in my lane.
So
Like I really believe.
would be stay hungry. Stay
Yes.
hungry because you
I
want to
think also,
constantly grow. And if
yeah,
you're
I think it's so
satisfied with
true.
that one job that you probably had, you would never want to, like for example, you moved. You were born and brought up in Australia. You have
Yes.
moved. You've been managing. Now you're back in Australia. You're managing businesses as well as this foundation, which is the Kuching Food Aid from Australia. So the
Yes.
fact is that all these things did not stop you. You stepped ahead with the game and you kept moving forward. Actually, why don't you share a little bit, Chantel, about your Kuching Food Aid and how has it, this charity, how did it come about? And the
Well,
story
I
behind it.
think the key thing as well, like just I will add to that, but I think technology is the reason why we can do all this now. Like
Yeah.
that's the key. Like when I was going to leave Australia, Skype and Facebook was sort of just coming into the scene. People were starting to use it, and people using, the internet to communicate. Before it was just, purely emails. And I mean, those were the days where you could write an email and say, oh, I hope they write back in a week's time. Now it's like, if I write a message to somebody, they better reply back in the next 10 seconds. Like it's so different. And I think technology has made, our, Earth is so international now. Like it doesn't matter where you are. No one cares where you are anymore. Just get the job done. It doesn't matter. So I think it's a beautiful thing. But back to the question about Kuching Food Aid, how did it start? It actually started because of social media. My love for social media, which everybody has to be on now.
In fact, I think that's how even Datin Shen-Tel probably and Bauhaus have been brands which are globally known because of your presence on social media. So coming to that, yes.
I think social media was a huge part in how our businesses were able to grow. It was free. Can I tell you? Like every business owner loves the word free, and you're going to get sales. We were very early to Facebook for both brands. Facebook's where it all started, and now it's transitioned into Instagram, and now you've got TikTok and there's just and Twitter. Like there's so many ways that you can communicate. But for both the brands, I think we realized early that people cared about the brands, but they wanted to know who created the brands. So I resisted on having a personal Instagram for a very, very long time. I didn't want to be a part of the space. I just didn't think it was important until I started realizing, actually, I do want to know who created this and I want to know more. And that's when I started to realize that my own personal branding was important for my businesses. And that's why I always tell people, I'm like, don't believe everything that you see on Instagram. Like it's a curated version of what you want people to know about you. And you have to think about it quite carefully before you post, because that stuff's going to stay on the internet forever. You got to make sure you're not offending anybody, but still staying true to yourself. Because now people get cancelled within a second. And I don't enjoy that part. And that's a new phase that we've come into with social media is, that cancelled culture. But back to your question, which we keep steering off.
Which is how you have actually...
How do we start? Yes, how I started.
You have leveraged the social media to actually create this, I would say, tsunami effect, literally, with the Kuching Food Aid. Like
I think it was timing.
Like 22,000 families across.
In total, we have helped. We have not. So every month we're around 2,500 families we're helping monthly. But all up close to about 24,000 now. It just changes every day. Like this week, we've helped 834 families just this week. The numbers keep changing. But back to the question, how did it start? It was through Instagram. Someone messaged me on Instagram and basically held a mirror to my face and said, hey, can you help? Can you stop with whatever you're messaging about? Like something's happening around the corner from where you live. like, and I think you should have a look at it, and I think you should get into it, and I think you should do something about it. They asked me to help with hand sanitizers and masks. There was a huge outbreak in Haji Bakar, which was very close to actually where I lived, and knew the area. And because Kuching's really small, you can tap into networks fast. Like, you can message friends. And I had a mentor who's so involved in charity work. I messaged her. She said, it's legit. Here's a newspaper article. This just happened yesterday. They're under lockdown. There's like over 500 families. I think there's 300 that need help. And then we went back and forth, and literally I just posted on Instagram before I went to bed at 11 p.m. saying, hey, someone reached out to me and I'm going to do a buy tomorrow. And I said, if anyone wanted to add on, just message me and we'll do an IOU. I didn't say this is my bank account. No. It was just really innocent. I just thought maybe, my mom might message me back. That's how I communicate with my mom, is through my Instagram.
Right.
Like I just, your usual auntie might message you back, the next morning. But I woke up the next morning and like 30,000 ringgit had been pledged overnight. And that was what shocked me. I thought, oh my goodness, like I could never do that by just a WhatsApp group to my friends. Like I could not raise that amount of money so quickly. So, that's where it started. And that's when I realized that Instagram has the power to motivate people to help, not just have envy, not just be, a mental damaging thing. Because there's a negative side to social media.
So toxic, and you have shown that how you have actually brought people together for a cause that they believed in. Initially, probably it was people who were close to us, probably our inner circles or people within the region. But how you have expanded that to bringing people from global context to supporting this cause, and it's all through Instagram and your social media leveraging.
I think storytelling is so important today, and people having a point of view. And like, I love following people on Instagram who have a point of view, who have an opinion, who tell me like what's going on in their brain, what's ticking. And I think I am a natural storyteller. Like, I'm an oversharer when I'm passionate about something, like something that I think you might want. Like, I'm the kind of girl who's like, I want to share with you. Like, if I find something amazing and good, I want you to know about it. Same going with like, inequality, things that are happening in our community that I am seeing with my own eyes. I want you to know about it too, because I'm not saying that you need to do something about it. It's more, this is what's happening. So you should think about it, or you should just be grateful for where you are in your life right now, because there are people who, would envy the life that you live, So I started really innocently, and I also just used my camera. I used my phone to show others, what's happening, because at the time people were really scared to go out. COVID, the information wasn't what it is now. But back then, charities lost their funding. Volunteers didn't want to go and send aid anymore, but they knew that these families needed help. And that's when I was like, okay, there's no time to even think about starting anything. It was more like, how am I going to get food? How many volunteers can I get to send food? Let's get this started. But at the beginning, nothing existed. So I had to use my family. I had to use my friends. I had to use the contacts that I knew. And again, coming from a small community, it's easy. I think when you use people that you know.
Your family was going through a very dark phase when it actually happened.
It was. Your
father-in-law country.
Again, I think that's timing again. Like, we couldn't be out. We were in a mourning period. And what can you do in a mourning period? The first 2 weeks, yes, you're really sad, but then life has to get back going, And I remember coming home and telling my mother-in-law, like, I want to pack some aid. And she was so sad, but she didn't know what was going on. And I'm like, I'm just going to the shops and we're going to come back and the whole family's going to help. And I remember her just yelling at everybody after dinner. Like, all the kids were on their iPads. Like, let's be real. All the kids were just sitting there on their iPads. No one was talking to each other. And she yelled at all of them and said, like, get in the living room. We're going to pack the aid. And we all came together. And something magical happened. I think it was just that selfless act of doing something for somebody else that you don't know has that power, because all of us as a family were like, oh, when are we going to pack again? And we all came together and we're doing it. So I love, stories of other volunteers who get together to do the same thing, but it's very time consuming. And I realized really quickly when I knew I was going to come back to Australia that I need to change the way that aid is done. And I think that was probably the business side inside me. Realized quickly.
You did mention that Kuching Food Aid became bigger after you had left Kuching.
Yes, it did.
So
I put
but
all of the
was it because
systems in
also you
place.
had brought in your previous experience of shuffling between Australia and Malaysia, that you were
Yeah.
able to bring that side of it, the business side of it, into the charity too?
Yes. I think what I always say now when I think about it, I think of the families as the customer. The families are the ones that are placing an online order, almost saying like, I need help. And, you know, the donors are the ones that are funding it all. But the supermarkets are now the volunteers who pack the aid.
Right. Right.
So we basically, you know, have amazing partners who now have willingly, you know, they might be making, you know, 50 cents or, you know, 80 cents per aid bag now,
Yeah.
but that enables us to have the aid ready quickly. So volunteers would have to sometimes wait up to 3 to 5 days for the aid to be packed, because you'd have to call, you know, so many suppliers. And you know, cost for me at the beginning was all about how much money can I save? I want to get as much food as possible. And then it's shifted now to how many families can we help? Like, that's the most important. We need to get food to them. We need to get to them quickly. We need to be able to go beyond just Kuching, beyond just the city areas. We've got to go to rural areas. So I'm always trying to work with new supermarkets and showing them why it's important, because supermarkets actually get contacted all the time for aid, and they don't know how to deal with it. So it's a great partnership where our caseworkers are able to take those, you know, information and call the families and find out what's going on. Can we support you? Do you need more than just food? Do you need sanitary pads? Do you need milk? So it's become, you know, it's become bigger than what I had ever expected, because I started,
it started small, just by within the
really
community.
small.
Yes, but how you have used the ecosystem to expand and go beyond the initial periphery of Kuching boundaries. I mean, taking that forward, Chantal, you have been recognized in the Gentile list among the top 300 leaders tomorrow in Asia. Congratulations.
What a sentence.
And
I can't believe it. I was like,
yes,
are you crazy?
for your
I
philanthropic
know.
work. So first of all, let's just do a shout out. How much have we been able to raise for Kuching Food Aid? Because guys on listening to us, there is the details about Kuching Food Aid. Do leave a donation. Every bit counts. Yes.
Every bit counts. I mean, it costs us 50 ringgit to help a family. We started in October of last year, very innocently, but all the way up to now, we're definitely well over 1 million ringgit that has been pledged to Kuching Food Aid. Yeah, which has been incredible.
Amazing. Over 1 million ringgit on food, and hunger is a real problem. It is a real thing.
It's a global issue, but I think in East Malaysia specifically, you know, traditionally we don't get as much funding, and because of the demographics. East Malaysia is massive, you know, and transport is expensive. There's so many factors, but we have amazing volunteers who actually pay for their transport. They pay for the petrol. So when a donor gives 50 ringgit, it is all going towards 50 ringgit of food. It goes straight to a supermarket, and then the volunteer collects it and sends it out. So we're working with existing charities, NGOs, community head leaders. These people are well respected in their community and vouch for the family's aid. So, you know, again, this is all through social media. It's, you know, that's how we're able to keep growing, because, you know, other charities will come forward and say, okay, we have families here. Can you help? And then we'll say, you know, we're trying, it's problem solving. That's really what it is. And we're trying our best.
And that is why I think that, you know, Chantal, you have been recognized by the Gentile list among the top 300 leaders for tomorrow, for the future. So, I mean, congratulations. You are making an impact. I mean, you're fun, you're quirky. And this quote always comes to my mind, that never judge a book by its cover, because you have to read it to actually know what that book is all about. And you are really a classic case for me, where you have, just by seeing someone like you on Prestige magazine, people might have an impression, but when they see the kind of work, the philanthropic work that you have done for the community, it has been inspiring. So with that, let me ask you, because we are running short of time for our show, what would be your one message to our emerging leaders, that what can they do to grow, whether it's in terms of personal growth or give back to the community? What would be your one sharing?
I think following what you're most curious about is something that I would say, because people don't talk about curiosity enough. I know I never really heard about it. They're always like, do what you love, do what you're passionate about. No. I think do what you're curious about at that time, because we always wake up and we're always thinking, I wonder this, I wonder that. Like, you're curious about it, but when you're curious, it means that you don't know how to do it. It means that you have no clue. I always say, like, for me, I'm curious about so many things. I'm really quick to message people and ask for help and point me in a direction, and I'm always into Google. I'm always into looking on YouTube. I'm so curious about so many things. And I think as a leader, it's so important to be continuously curious. Because like I said at the beginning, like, you just don't want to be staying in that one lane. Like, you just can't. And I think that has helped me grow as a person. I think my own self-growth is the most important thing, which then leads into my businesses and leads into the, charities, and it leads into the other hats that I have. But I think, that would be my big takeaway, is just to keep being curious, because I know maybe because I have young children and I love watching them be curious, and it's become more of a topic for myself, is like, if I'm curious about this artist, I'm going to go down the rabbit hole and find out more information. If I'm curious about, this app that might help my business and I don't know much about it, but I keep hearing it in the press, then I'm going to go in and I'm going to Google it, have a look, and I might download it the first month for free and have a look, so that there's so many things to be curious about now in this world. I think technology, there's no reason to not be curious about anything. So people tell me, like, I don't know what I like. I'm like, well, start looking at things, and then you'll know. You might pass 50 things, but then there's this one thing that you might stop on and you can't figure out why. But that's the curious point.
That's where the learning starts, because the minute you stop is when your learning starts. So with that, Shen-Tel, I would say that it's been an amazing episode for our viewers today. We have learned the most important thing in life to grow is to stay curious, take risks, think bigger, and and the most important thing that we have today is the social media. It's not all that toxic. You can use it.
It's not.
It is a powerful tool that you can use in meaningful ways, one for yourself, and one, your own personal growth has taken place for the growth of other people, because when we empower others and we grow self, and so does the community and the organization. With that, I would like to thank our viewers for listening to me and Shen-Tel today. We will be back next week again with another guest to share their learnings and their journey. And for more information, join the Leadership Card Facebook page and follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcast under Leadership Talks for Emerging Leaders. With this is Kiran signing off till we meet again. Thank you, Shen-Tel.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.